And we are live. This is Firearms Nation, and I'm going to be talking tonight with the legendary Frank Proctor. For those of you that don't know him, he's got some clock numbers in front of his face. I'm going to get rid of that so he doesn't see that. But I'm really excited to have everybody here watching this, and as more people come in, we'll be able to move forward and get their questions. Just some housekeeping. One of these things when we always go live, we always want to make sure that you can hear the host, hear the speaker. So if you're having trouble hearing me, sound off. If you're coming into this, sound off. Say hi, where you're from. Are you a student of Frank's? Just the general types of questions, because we really want to hear from you. We're going to get into a whole bunch of different topics here, but of course, most importantly is going to be your questions, right? This is your time. If you have questions about, guns, sights, gear, Frank's all into it, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Competition shooting. If you heard the podcast that Frank did not that long ago, we started talking about his differences now in shooting competition. He's into some new types of divisions, and definitely hit that like button because it'll get this stream out there. More people can see it if they already don't know about it, and come by and join us. So Frank, how you doing?
Good, man. How about yourself? Thanks for having me on.
We're doing good. It's right around the holidays, so thank you so much for coming by and doing this right before we hit the craziness of the travel tomorrow. Are you sticking around, or are you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sticking around. Got some cooking to do.
What what's the weather like up there? You're in Alabama, correct?
Yeah, it's nice right now. I don't know, probably high 60s or so. Pretty comfortable, sunny out. It's been nice past few days.
Well, I'm sticking around myself because I've learned from past experience it's never a good thing to go traveling, and I hear there's going to be storms and all sorts of craziness.
Yeah,
So I don't want to be a part of that. Uh, I am always looking forward to the holidays because it's a chance to see family and friends and kind of catch up on stuff. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
yeah.
So yeah, you've been doing a lot of teaching. You were just telling me beforehand that you got some classes coming up. What's coming up for you in terms of your teaching?
Oh man, a lot of stuff over the next month actually, and then we get into 2020 there. Out in Houston next week, and then Austin, Texas as well. A couple LE mill only classes there with the Texas Tactical Police Officers Association, or TTPOA, and then back home for a bit, and then out to Crescent, Texas. I think around December 11th, 12th, somewhere right around there. Back home for a little while, and then down your way, down to Homestead, Florida, towards the end of the month. I think like 28th, 29th.
What
Then
when,
go
when
ahead.
you're doing these classes, are they 2-day classes? Are they single classes? What's the breakdown?
Um, what's coming up? The couple of them that are coming up in Crescent, and then out down in Homestead. There, those are I'm there for 2 days, but those are set up as a day of pistol and a day of carbine, and people can attend either or. But for the most part, and going forward in the next year, most of it's going to be 2 days, either one gun or 2 days of pistol, or one day of carbine, one day of pistol. Minus a few around here, around home. I've got some scheduled with at the CMP down here in Talladega, Alabama. That are we got some pistol only and some carbine onlys there as well. Some
Does that breakdown work good for you? Just having the ability to just choose one or the other. Find just having a straight 2-day class is the preferred way to go.
It's kind of according. I'm kind of a in the weeds kind of guy, so I do enjoy having 2 days on the gun, especially pistol. Um, and I don't know how many people want to get as far in the weeds as I like to go, especially with pistol. But typically with 2 days on the pistol, we get pretty deep in there. Um, excuse me. The other ones are fun as well. The new format I'm doing, going forward into next year, the new course there's performance marksmanship and movement dynamics. Excuse me, is what I'm calling it. What we're going to do there is go into a little bit of the philosophy, if you will. That's something I go really deep into in 2 days on pistol is the philosophy of shooting, thinking, seeing, training. Um, with that 2 day course, the performance marksmanship and movement dynamics course, that one's going to be more, a little bit of philosophy and then a whole lot of the application, which sometimes I think is a little bit more digestible for people. I need some water.
Well, go ahead and get
Like all of
some.
a sudden my
Uh,
throat's all
Go
jacked
ahead
up.
and get some water while.
Yeah. Find some questions real quick. I'll
Whoop, yeah, don't knock
grab
over the
some water.
mic.
Like,
Um,
yeah, be right back.
so, guys, just so I know on my end, and thanks, Brad, for chiming up there. What is your main questions you have for Frank? I mean, are you more of a tactical perspective or more of a competition perspective? I was lucky. I've trained with Frank years ago, and I did both the pistol and the carbine, and it, his style is very different than a lot of other people. Um, it's very almost like a philosophy. And you were starting to get into saying something like that, Frank, about the philosophies that you were going to get into the weeds of the philosophies.
Yeah.
As I was just saying, when I took your class, it was you were talking what a lot of people talk about, of course, but you have a different spin on it, right? You call things "let it do."
Mhm.
Where does "let it do" come from?
Well, the root of it, like I think, kind of like let it do is going to kind of be the my philosophy on shooting, and the I guess where it started with was shooting's kind of simple. If we see the things we need to see, and then let it do. I'm talking about the human machine. Your mind. Let it control your body and let it do the things that you're capable of. You'll get the results you want. Been kind of boiling that down into I don't know the philosophy or how I'm going to explain it or how I explain it or whatever. Um, the let it do philosophy maybe is taking an intuitive approach to performance. 3 parts to that intuitive approach. The way I'm kind of presenting it, the mental part of it, the visual part, and then the physical part. I believe if we have our mind right. Humans are adaptive. We're smart. We're very capable. We've got lots of tools already in there. Everything that anybody wants to do with the guns is already in there. You can already do it. Just allowing yourself to do it, letting yourself do it. But if we have our to work through that intuitive approach, I think if we have our mind right, our mind set on what we want to accomplish, and then another part of the mental thing is being calm and comfortably mentally. If we're not comfortable, you really kind of throw away all those really cool tools that we have inside of us. But we have our mindset on what we want to do. If we're comfortable mentally, then we visually feed the information into the machine so it can process it. It'll provide us the outputs we want. We'll get the physical results that we want. So that's kind of my philosophy on let it do.
Did you find shooting came easy to you?
Nah, man, especially not pistols. Um, I guess like a lot of folks that grew up, I mean, we hunted, my brother and I would shoot and we shot BB guns and all that kind of stuff, so, but pistols, man, that's a whole nother ball game, man. I tell people all the time in class, in 1998, if we're out on the range and there's like a 55-gallon drum out there, and it's like 15 yards away, it's like in 1998, that big plastic barrel would probably have been safe for me with a pistol. It wasn't really until about 2004 that I learned how to shoot a pistol and hit things. So now, not easy.
What do you
But
think made the difference for you?
well, in 2004, when I got out of the Q course, like the first thing I did when I got back to a team was, I went to our shooting and CQB school. And I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed, the shooting part of it was part of my job. I took it seriously, putting extra work into it, but also enjoyed it. You got, I guess that's where I really, when I really started putting more emphasis into shooting. And then when I got into competitive shooting in '07, things like kind of really took off because, found out, what all I didn't know about shooting. And it was a challenge there. It was like, things I didn't know that could be done and I wanted to be able to do and just continue to work at it. And like almost every day, sometimes twice a day, to be better at it, to go shoot a match and see how I would do that weekend, and then go back and work on it some more.
Why do you think people have such a hard time getting to that next level, getting to the upper class of USPSA, or just even I mean, tactical shooting? If I'm not saying that it's not as tough because it's even more stressful, but in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the practice for it, the force on force is probably the best thing, but you're not using real ammo for that. So that's where
Yeah.
competition works. But why is it that some people just lag at mid level and can't make it to the top?
Man, I don't know. Maybe some personal questions for somebody to ask their dedication to it. I mean, how much do you want to do it? Is it something that, and there's nothing wrong with it, if somebody just enjoys doing something and just enjoys shooting and going and hanging out with friends, and heck yeah, man, nothing wrong with that. The folks, I mean, if somebody's like really driven and wants to go further, they can. I do think a lot of people train the wrong way. I trained the wrong way and still
What's the wrong
occasionally train
way?
the wrong way.
What's the wrong way?
Well, I mean, if you look at what a lot of folks do in dry fire, and what I mean, and the people who are listening here, and I know I did it as well. Dry fire consisted of draws and reloads. And if you watch folks' Instagrams or YouTube pages, what they're doing for dry fire, is like, how fast can you draw and reload a pistol? And I did that. I worked like really hard on how fast I could draw and reload a pistol. And just like these super jerky mechanics, and everything in your dry fire stuff being about mechanics, or a technique or gear. I got this new holster, and now all of a sudden you're going to be magic. I live that. I definitely pursued that. I bought every $300 Glock trigger that ever existed, I think, up until a point. They didn't make me any faster. They didn't put bullets on the targets either, by the way. But yeah, I think we as shooters, like where we go the wrong way is spending a lot of time on mechanics, technique, and not enough time on the visual side of the house. The visual side feeds all of it. You're only taking a gun out of the holster so that you can see the sights on the target. That's, if it hitting the targets weren't part of it, they wouldn't have targets in the match, right? But I think, better ways to invest the time. How many reps, something I've started thinking more about lately, and my own observations with my training, and, being around other people, and kind of reflecting it towards other things in life too. Repetitions, I believe in repetitions in succession, so that we get a chance to kind of adapt to it, kind of get a feel for things, and become aware of them, and then we adapt to them. There's definitely a point of diminishing returns where, if you say it's like, hey, if I'm going to get 50 reps of something, if you start doing it and by about rep number 7 or 8, you're just doing it and not getting anything out of it, like maybe every repetition potentially is printing something on the hard drive. You want to print good stuff, or you want to print just whatever, because when it's time for the machine to run a program, I talk about us as like machines, when it's time for it to run a program, it's going to run the program that you wrote, what kind of code did you put in there, so bad reps are also, they're also in there imprinted on the hard drive. So, started thinking more along the lines of somewhere around 5 reps per set being kind of max, and then, take a break, do something different, come back and do that same exercise. And then for the same number of reps, lower reps, but make them quality reps.
No, you talked
I don't
about
know if I
the
got down
visual.
a rabbit hole there or not.
No, no, but you talked about that visualization being so important, or the visual, maybe not
Mhm.
visualization, but the visual. I just want you to go a little bit more into what are you talking about with the visual? Just being able to see what your sights are doing, to see the targets, to make sure you're seeing. Everyone likes to say, "See what you need to see," but
Yeah.
that's such a ambiguous statement that
Yeah.
I don't
What do
know
you
what
guys
to
see?
look for.
Yeah.
So what am I looking at?
Oh man. Well, if I think people can reflect, on performance. Did you had a good performance? You had a bad performance. If you go and shot a match or you shot a drill or something and you missed, did you miss because you didn't see the target, or did you miss because you didn't see the sights? Right. And especially in pistol shooting, that's where we fail. We don't make the visual connection of the gun, and I think that's the problem with a lot of dry fire and live fire practice being all about most live fire practice is all about the target. People go shoot targets. They run through a drill, they go look at the target, they score it, they talk about like should they like put their pinky out if they're pushing the gun down into the left or whatever. Talk about that kind of stuff for 45 minutes, pace targets, and go back and shoot it again. So the target's telling them everything in live fire, and the gun never told them anything. You know, in dry fire, if it's just all about mechanics and not about making a real legitimate visual connection to the gun, it's going to be hard to go where you want to go. So the visual side of that I would say and believe in putting more effort into is seeing the gun, seeing the sights. Um, After that, you're going to see the target. The point of the whole thing is to put the bullets on the target, but you have to see the gun part of it. The human machine, like I say, can process information really fast and provide really fast outputs, but it's got to have all the information. And the target part's not the information we usually don't get. It's the gun part that we usually don't get. And I'd ask folks to kind of roll that around their heads, and or the next time they go shoot, and they don't have the success they want. Like, hey, what'd you see while you were shooting? Willing to bet you saw the target, but you may not have seen the sights.
I want to add to that question in a second, but I got a question here from
Mhm.
Skills. That's his pseudonym here. Uh,
Okay.
but I was going to ask the same question too. So you're doing dry practice. How can you do, or what are you trying to do for your visual training in dry practice?
Making a visual connection to the gun, making a habit of making a visual connection to the gun while you're shooting it.
Okay, and what does
Yeah,
that mean? A visual connection to the gun.
you're connected to the interface. Like it'd be well, yeah, maybe that's not a good analogy. Um, if you're dry firing, I do believe too in leaving timers out of dry fire and even a lot of your live fire practice. That's actually the bulk of your live fire practice. Leave the timer out. Let the sights tell you everything you want to know. Like how fast can you manipulate triggers for if you're playing a game that requires 2 rounds on the target? Well, there's more to that than we get into. But how fast can you get target to target? Your eyes need to tell you that. Your eyes need to see. You see target, you see sights, you trigger the gun, feedback to get there. Does the gun move? Do the sights move outside of the part of the target you want to hit? And there's some feedback for you to evaluate where were they on the target. You can basically calling shots. But if you're shooting irons, I would pay a little bit more attention to sight alignment and placement. Live in the present tense that you triggered the gun in dry fire. Where did you see the sights? Record that information and then move to another target. If and evaluate how long did you look at the sights before you triggered the gun, and after you triggered the gun, how quickly did you get your eyes over to the next target? Where did the gun land? Did the gun land, or did you trigger without the gun being on there? Let me tell you a little story that would maybe make that little lesson there make more sense. When I got into competitive shooting and wanted to get better at it, because I wanted to do better. I wanted to do better in matches. I started dry firing, and it was like draws, reloads, like everybody else did. I did tons of El-Pres dry fires, but they were basically, it was like turn, draw, mash the trigger 6 times as I was moving it through an area, reload it, mash the trigger 6 times, think I finally got to a point where I put some targets up. I don't even know if I did that, but here's where things really changed for me as a shooter, and dry fire really started meaning something different to me. This was around 2007, like May-ish of 2007. I started competing, and I joined a range off post there. So pretty much every afternoon when I was done with Army stuff, as soon as I could, I went to a range and started and set up stuff and live fired. And kind of, I think, like most everybody else, my feedback came when I went and looked at targets. I would shoot, I'd go up there and score them, paste them, go load, go shoot again, Well, I went out of town and did some training with some other people for like 30 days, where I was gonna shoot, but it was as an instructor. I wasn't gonna get my practice session time like I'd become accustomed to, and I wanted to do more of that. So I made some scaled down targets. I got some cardboard and cut them out kind of in the shape of little small USPSA targets. That was before Ben Steger Pro Shop had them, which
Right.
I definitely recommend getting yourself some of those. So I made, I don't know, 8 of those, and then had some little round white disc that we used on the known distance ranges for marking where rifle bullets hit. So I took some of those, and they were like 2 inches or so, and I thumbtacked those up in the wall or on the walls in my hotel room. Like a 3 cardboard target array, and then a couple pieces of steel, and then on another wall, maybe 180 degrees out, another small array, and so it had basically like a little mini stage set up in my room. So I would come back from the range every afternoon, and I figured out with a Glock 34, I was shooting a 35 in limited then, so I had a 34 that I practiced with because I had a lot of 9mm ammo available. I figured out if you take a piece of cardboard off of an ammo box, you could put it in there and kind of keep the gun out of battery and run the triggers over and over again, right? Later on, I figured out a zip tie works out really well for that too. Well, I would work like from the holster, draw to that 3 target array, run triggers, reload the gun, move to another target array, reload, walk to another target array, etc. Right? It was then that I noticed, like, hey, wait a minute, bro. The gun came out of the holster. I mashed the trigger 6 times really fast through a 3 target array. And I noticed then that I pressed the trigger once and the gun was in between 2 targets. I'm like, that wouldn't have hit anything. So a visual connection to the gun told me that. When I would live fire practice, and I think a lot of people do this, and I see it happen a lot in matches too. People shoot and they have no idea what they hit until they walk out there and look at targets.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you start getting your feedback. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, man, that target was 3 yards away. How did I miss that? I know how you missed that. The gun was in between the targets when you pressed the trigger, and you didn't know because you didn't see the gun. You saw targets. That's kind of the stuff I think we imprint on the hard drive when we do that type of dry fire stuff, where it's just like draw the gun, mash triggers, and reload, and mash trigger somewhere else, So that visual connection to the gun thing to get my answers, because I couldn't go and, like I was going every afternoon before and shooting and scoring and pasting targets, I couldn't get my feedback off of the targets. I had, in that dry fire thing there, I had to get feedback. I had to get some sort of reward off of seeing sights. What that produced for me, like I said, there was 5 or 10, well, probably not 5 or 10, probably like 10 or 15 minutes a night for 30 days, pretty much. I came back from that trip, and I didn't get any live fire or USPSA practice at all. But I came back from that trip, and the Alabama State USPSA match was at my home club then. And I showed up, and I forget where I placed overall, but decent overall. But I won B class in limited, which was like a big, big deal at that point for me, because I had been, like middle of the pack, in all the club match stuff, but after after that, things started changing. I started doing better in matches. Um, Still had some other issues we can talk about a little bit later, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from with making that visual connection to the gun in your dry fire versus a lot of mechanics. And, honestly, the eyes are going to teach the hands. I do believe in vision based mechanics. Our eyes will teach our hands to do the things we need them to do, and it'll happen, as fast as it's going to happen. It may not happen as fast as you want it to happen, but it'll happen as fast as it's going to happen. I'm really starting to put way less weight on mechanics also. If you think about like the mechanics of getting a pistol out of a holster in a USPSA or IDPA match or even a gunfight, um, how long does that take? It doesn't need to take 12 days, but it also doesn't have to happen in 0.5 seconds, because a whole lot of other things are going to happen after that. If you can be comfortable, fluid, repeatable with those mechanics, like getting the gun out of the holster and getting it in front of your dominant eye and in line with what you're looking at, you can really start making the fast stuff happen after that. I could go way deep into this, and I guess I will. Your eyes and your brain are the absolute fastest tools that you own as a shooter. Your hands, your feet, hell, your gun, nowhere near as fast as your eyes and your mind. That's where you make your time. Anyway, what do you got next?
Well, I just want to continue one little thing before I get to some other questions on the stuff you're doing with the visual, because I find it fascinating. I think you're right about a lot of this stuff. Obviously, you are, but I think that because I think about these things too in my own shooting and what I've seen with other students, and there's an anxiety, I think, to get the gun off,
Mhm.
right? I'm putting it on a target, and I see it more obviously in competitive style environment, but there's that anxiety. I got to get the rounds out, and
Mhm.
you end up not getting a good sight picture, or you thought you had a good sight, but you're just pulling the trigger because the gun is somewhere on the target. And then you go down
Mhm.
range and you got, like Alpha Delta or Alpha Charlie. I mean, the biggest one you see probably in matches are Alpha Charlies all over the place
Mhm.
because people are afraid. They think that they're behind the eight ball when they have too much time. And you really don't have a good judge of time, especially when you're under stress, when it's your turn to shoot. So I watched you shoot, you're before me, and you just burn it down. At least in my mind, it looks like you're just burning it down. I mean, crap, I got to burn it down now too. And I get up there and I'll just start throwing lead and not even thinking about anything because I feel like if I'm just holding too much on that mini popper there, I'll throw 5 shots into the dirt before I hit it. But if I only just took that tenth of a second to settle the sight right
Wow.
there on the popper and not jerk the trigger, I would have saved, zero point 0.4 as opposed to wasting zero point 0.6 just to hit that steel. Uh,
Oh, it's more than that. More than that. I'm gonna
right.
throw this at you, man. It takes no kidding. This ain't even making this up. It takes the same amount of time to hit as it does to miss. So it's like looking at that mini popper analogy you're talking about there, and I've thought that way before as well. It's like, hey, if you just took an extra tenth of a second, you don't even have to do that because it takes the same amount of time to hit it as it does to miss it. The same amount of movement happened, et cetera. How long it took you to press the trigger, all that same. It's just like, what did you see? All right. Those misses where we problems we have, especially in that environment, are over trying. That's a big one. That's wrecking the mental game there a little bit. That's over trying. Another way to think of it as well. It may be something slightly different, maybe the same thing, but it definitely ends up producing the same result. Either over trying or focusing on the outcome instead of the process of getting the outcome. What does it take to get that hit on that mini popper fast? You got to see that. And if you don't see that, you ain't getting that hit on that mini popper, and you know, legitimately, a miss on steel cost you a second. All right, you think about the time at least a second, the time it takes to fire the shot. And generally, when we realize we missed the steel, well, we fire that shot at the steel because steel typically takes one round, right? We fire that shot, we start moving to another target, start transitioning. And then something goes off and you realize, like, I missed that. So now you have moved away from it and you have to come back to it and you fire another shot. That's at least a second grand total. What it took to fire the shot, leave, come back, and then, or leave, and then the time to take to come back before you fire the next shot, at least a second. So, um, and I don't think it really even takes a tenth of a second extra longer to make sure you get the hit. It's just what you see, you know. Um, and that's it kind of goes back into where I'm going with that, making a habit of seeing the gun. In all of your training, whether it's dry fire or live fire, making a habit of seeing the gun. And then
So would you
then you can
agree?
hit or miss in the same amount of time.
So would you agree though? All right, so you're a grandmaster in USPSA. That means that you're pretty good at hitting the targets and doing everything else at a very good speed versus somebody who is having a hard time with that. But the only thing that you do better is you can see, I want to say you can, are you seeing faster what you need to see? Not seeing faster, but seeing what you need to see faster
Yeah.
than the regular guy, the C class, B class shooter. Because
Yeah, I think it's just people haven't harnessed it yet. I think everybody's got the same visual capabilities. They just haven't harnessed it. Something really basic. I harnessed it with. I talk about it sometimes as being aggressive with the vision. Wanting to see more faster. The competitiveness there, and then the drive to get better with it, I think will bring that along. But I think everybody's got the same abilities, just whether or not they've harnessed it yet. Something I've noticed, and it's a fast thing to do. I've been doing some pretty basic stuff, little finger trick stuff in classes, getting people to move their eyes faster, one thing to another. Once they see, the output they needed from the gun, leave. And I'll do a little visual exercise where I'm looking at a shooter's dominant eye and give them a cue, and then that should mean that the cue is to move their eyes to another place, and I see what their eyes are doing. And I see that, like, hey, there's a lag before your eye moves. But if we talk about it, we keep working on it, within a few reps, they start twitching the eye. And that's just harnessing the ability they've already got. A lot of times folks don't realize, like, hey, that's the thing. Because, we hear a lot. I heard it a lot coming up as a competitive shooter. It's like, it's all about technique. The people are winning or losing matches over 0.2 of a second. No, man. The first and second place dudes at nationals aren't 0.2 of a second apart. The first and second place dudes are probably a couple seconds apart. Now, do couple tenths of a seconds matter here and there? Yeah, but it's like multiple multiple times that somebody picks up a half a second, 0.2 of a second in a stage, that end up adding up there. But like, oh gosh, I forgot how I was going with that, but yeah, I know where I was going with that. We hear a lot of the talk about all the mechanical things or the movement things. Or, yeah, if you like stomp your feet on the ground, as you start moving into position, you're going to be faster. That's or if you shoot when your foot touches the ground inside a box, rather than wait until both feet are in the ground, you're going to be faster. And people try to work on the mechanical aspects of that. Well, that's all driven by vision. The people that are doing that, they're doing that. Their mind's telling their body to do that. Their mind's telling their body, and it's because of that visual aggression. They want to see targets and sights faster. All right. So go back to that intuitive approach I talked about, or intuitive approach. If you you tell your mind what you want to do, all right, or set it in your mind, what do you want to do? You want to shoot targets faster, okay? All right, you've got to get to point A to point B to be able to see and shoot the target, all right? Be mentally comfortable. Then feed your mind the information it needs. You'll get the physical output you need. The whole like shooting as your foot touches the ground, that'll happen if you do those other two things. If you spend all your time just working on the shooting when your foot touches the ground thing, you may never get there.
Makes sense. And
Yeah.
before we go into something like rifles, Dr. Dan wants to know if what are you seeing, you Frank Proctor? What are you seeing when the gun goes off? Uh, for him, he's seeing his sights go up to the left and then circle clockwise back to where it starts. So it's going up and to the left and then kind of shimmying back.
Okay. That's honest assessment. If he's got that kind of information, if he's able to quantify that type of movement, he's made the visual connection to the gun he needs um, to fire an accurate shot, or to for the mind to have the information it needs to fire a shot fast. After that, he's going to start feeding in there, or allowing himself and harnessing that ability to go faster with it. Talking about gun movement, what type of gun movement we're seeing?
Well, what do you see when you're looking, when you're in the moment and you're moving through a
If
stage?
I'm
What
connected to the gun.
you're connected to the gun? What are you seeing? What is the sights just go up straight up
um,
or?
Yeah, iron sights typically bounce straight up and down. There's times, according to how you're moving and whatever, if we've got the gun predispositioned a certain way, it may track a little bit differently. The sight track up, down, left, or right, sometimes based on a shooter's recoil mechanics, and what path of least resistance they're giving the gun, or how hard they're fighting the gun. Shouldn't try to fight the gun. Dots. So typically, if I'm perpendicular to the ground and the gun's perpendicular to the ground, typically a straight up and down track. A way it kind of came to me once shooting and really paying attention to sights, or like when I really kind of started like noticing them, I didn't really have to overthink it. It's just, see the things that have always been there. Iron sights bouncing up and down out of a rear notch look like an inverted T happening over and over again. Like that's kind of neat. With a dot, yeah, man, sometimes there's all sorts of madness going on with that dot moving around. Because the dots amplify everything. You'll see if you put any movement into the gun prior to it firing, you can see the dot kind of move a little bit there. You see the dot lifting, up and back and down through recoil. And if you're moving any, it moves a little bit. But so I don't know, kind of a variety of things, kind of based on what we got going on.
Yeah, Dan was in your class in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you know exactly who that
Oh,
is.
this is way back.
Way back,
Way
but
back.
he says that you taught him what he needed to see. So obviously, it's working.
Very good.
Um,
Yeah.
let's move to rifle. Somebody here, where was it? Was
Is that
wondering.
Dan, the CZ guy?
Well, let's see,
We'll come back to that.
Dan,
If
Doctor
that's
Dan,
that's the guy I'm thinking of.
are you a CZ guy? Let me know. Uh, with the rifle, what are you
Mhm.
doing? Dry fire for the rifle, or are you even doing dry fire with a rifle? I mean, because listen, I know for me, and I never really got into 3-gun. I've shot it, but I just realized that it would just take too much effort to work all the skills necessary. I want to master the pistol, which seems to be taking a lifetime, but I want to master the pistol. And then if I need to go to the 3-gun, I'll start working it. But are you doing dry fire with the rifle?
Um, when I do issues with mechanics, the visual side of the shooting thing, it's a different animal with pistol. And I don't know exactly why. People typically don't have an issue. I've got some theories as to why, but people typically don't have an issue seeing rifle sights. They have an issue seeing pistol sights. Where we mount the pistol sometimes matters. If you mount the pistol a little bit too low, I can go way deeper on that one, but sometimes we have the opportunity to look over iron sights instead of through them. So we may be seeing sights, but we may not be seeing them the right way. Um, and the pistol's a little, generally our interface with the pistol, the sight's typically further away from our eye than the rifle sight is. Typically your rifle sight's really close to your eye, and rifles don't move as dynamically as pistols do. So I think some of those reasons are why typically shooters don't have an issue seeing the interface with the rifle. It's like a heads up display that kind of sits there. It's kind of like your windshield in your car. It's like kind of always in the same place. Pistol, I don't know. Pistol's not always in the same place, or eyes don't always lock onto it. So rifle stuff, I'll do some visual connection, scoring hit stuff, and trying to avoid transition mic stuff with the rifle. But most of the dry fire stuff's with the pistol. And I think a lot of folks can agree if you can shoot pistols well, carbines are easy. Doesn't go the other way around. If you're a good carbine shooter, and pistols ain't a guarantee.
I remember a while ago. I'm not going to say their names because I don't know if they want it out public, but uh, I was at this range, well-known instructor. He was partnered with another well-known instructor who wasn't really a carbine guy, but he was, grandmaster, top-level competitive shooter, and he threw him in this like a spec ops or SWAT class. Just it was straight carbine stuff for tactical work. And he threw him in that class, and he just smoked everybody. First time picking up a carbine, but you've mastered that trigger control and whatever else you needed to do, and yeah, picking up the carbine is a piece of
Yeah.
cake. But you're shooting PCC now.
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of videos, and we talked about it before. Good substitute for actual rifle. I mean, because you're
Oh yeah.
definitely moving that gun. I mean, you're whipping that gun around.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I don't think you're giving anything up if you like. If you're going to shoot 5.56 a good bit, whether it be for work stuff or three gun stuff or whatever, and you decide to spend a lot of time with the PCC, you're definitely not getting an easier ride with the pistol caliber carbine. In most cases, you're actually getting a harder ride. But most part, the recoil impulse on the 9mm guns is harsher than a 5.56 gun, especially a decently tuned 5.56 gun. So every now and then you'll get a little pushback from some of the tactical dudes or people don't know they've never shot is, oh, that's a 9mm. Well, like, yeah, have you shot a 9mm carbine? Like, especially a blowback gun, the recoil impulse is not that great, especially compared to a good 5.56 gun or even a mediocre 5.56 gun. What I like about it is, first of all, there's a division in the USPSA match for it. You can't show up to a USPSA match and shoot a 5.56 gun. Of course, there's plenty of three gun matches or carbine only matches, but you can shoot. So it opens up a lot more opportunities to compete with a carbine. And then training with it, I've got a bunch of steel. I like shooting steel. It actually saves my grass. Out here planting. I think we talked about that. So planted new or nice grass on my new bay over here. And I was shooting cardboard a bunch. I was like, man, bullets go through the cardboard, they chew up my grass. Well, if I just shoot steel, I do my job. I don't tear the grass up. But with the 5.56 guns, you can shoot steel closer with them, but you got to have the right kind of ammo. Most 5.56 commercially loaded 5.56 stuff is too fast for any steel, any kind of AR-500 steel, and it starts damaging the steel, which gets unsafe for you to shoot with rifle and or pistol without just getting blistered by spall. But 9mm in a PCC is the same stuff you're shooting out of your pistol. It's a little bit faster out of the carbine, but it still breaks apart nice. The steel still lasts, stays nice and safe. So those are some of the reasons I really like it. And then picking up jumping back onto a 5.56 gun after that is still really easy. And actually, it's easier to shoot than the 9mm guns. The 9mm guns are giving up distance, of course, but for USPSA matches, you're typically 30 yards and in. I'll shoot mine out to about 50 and in there, but yeah, I'm really digging the PCC.
Yeah, I think that'll be one of my resolutions to just to get that carbine out there because I like the aspect of that's the best thing about USPSA is that you have to. It's not just the coordination, the movement, the sport of it, but there's the thinking aspect of it, the visuals. I mean, it's all around, and it just. I mean, for me, it helped me so much to become a better shooter, and I always try and I know a lot of cops don't like to go out there. I'm sure it's the same thing with military guys because when you first start, you get smoked by civilians. And you're like, oh God, this I'm embarrassing myself.
Yeah.
But since we're on, before we get on to the next rifle question, Dr. Dan was saying that he was the novice that brought his teenage son, and you told him that the SIG 226 was giant for his hand. So,
Okay.
Don't know what that means, but
Okay. All right.
you guys know.
All right.
So when you're doing the um, practice with your rifle, are you applying the same concepts that you use with the pistol? This is from Bradley. Are you using the same concepts?
As in,
Like,
like,
do you do the same things? Like, if you're thinking in terms of the visual stuff about seeing what
oh
you need
yeah,
to see.
oh yeah. Being visually patient with the carbine brings it up a little bit more. Being visually patient because it, I say the sights stay there a little bit more. Or, and once we really become kind of visual shooters and start kind of harnessing that a little bit, we want to go fast, right? Your eyes can run
We
fast.
always want to
Your
go
eyes and your
fast.
mind. Say again.
We always want to go fast.
Oh yeah,
Ricky Bobby.
yeah. Your eyes and your mind can run the information fast, but it takes time for the outputs to happen. So definitely, trying to factor that back in there, staying visually patient, not having to cost time by making up stuff. And I mentioned transition mics earlier.
Right. Explain that.
That come that comes into play in the games where you play 2 rounds per target, where it's best 2 rounds per target. Um, there are targets that we can double. People would say double taps. I call them doubles, where we see one sight picture, run the trigger twice as fast as you can run it. And that's if the target allows it. If your recoil mechanics and what you're shooting for a particular target allow it, it's a faster way to score 2 points than 2 aimed shots, where you consciously see and process fire, see and process fire. Those would be 2 singles. A double, you process 2 fires. Well, your eyes and mind, your eyes can see, hey, there's that target, there's the sights, and it tells your brain, or it feeds the information back in. Your brain says, you make the gun go boom twice. Well, your eyes, you start getting aggressive, and you're like, hey, I shot it, it's time to go to the next target. And you start moving the gun before the second output happens. So those are transition mics, where it's not a marksmanship error. It's not like you can't hit the 5-yard target. It's your second shot went in between the first target and the second target you're moving to, because you didn't stay until the second output happened. So definitely, when I work carbine stuff, especially since I'm working a lot of it now in the same distances and arrays that I'm working the pistol stuff in, I'm aware of that, and put that kind of effort into there, to stay visually patient with it for the second movement of the dot, before we leave with the eyes there. Stuff on, I would say, the carbine opens up, especially PCC opens up. Especially thinking shooting a carbine and a pistol match, which is what's really going on in PCC as a division there. Pistol matches are set up to be challenging. There's a lot of dynamic movement required. If you've got a good stage design and a good match director, they create a lot of challenges for a shooter. Pistols are an easier gun to meet those challenges with. A lot of the tight space kind of stuff, and unlocking and using more joints to be able to facilitate getting the gun to a target. It's a different and more difficult thing to do with the carbine. The hard leans, where especially, having to lean out to your support side with the rifle mounted on your right shoulder can be kind of complicated. You can transition shoulders. Well, that's a technique and a tool. This past year, shooting a little bit more PCC and pistol matches, or more carbine and pistol matches, especially the Mississippi state match this past May was like an eye-opening experience, because there were a lot of hard leans that you do your walkthrough, and if you were shooting a pistol, it's like, okay, that's a hard lean, but not that bad. You can make that happen. Do your walkthrough and you're thinking it out with the carbine. It's like, okay, that's a tight lean. Well, you get into it live, and now you've really got the stick on your right shoulder. Like, yeah, that's difficult. So I learned a lot of lessons the hard way in that match. I was like, all right, there are a lot of tools and techniques and tactics I'm going to put into my carbine arsenal now that and into my classes and everything. They'll pay some dividends for anything you want to do with it. Gunfighting stuff with a carbine or competitive shooting stuff with a carbine. So those are things that are a little bit different with a carbine versus pistol in those same kind of distances. That maneuverability too. Not only getting the gun to targets with those hard leans and stuff, but the maneuverability with the carbine is a little bit different than the pistol. You're dealing with a gun that weighs 4 times as much or more and a good bit longer. So it absolutely, once again, those are skill sets that translate over to combat shooters as well. Being able to move, dynamic movement
For sure.
with the gun, and gun handling pay some dividends too.
Here's a more gear related question for
Yeah.
Bradley: is in your experience, what do you see the pros and cons versus on a carbine, a 10.5 or an 11.5?
Oh, um, I don't know. I've had a little bit. We had some 10.5s at one point in time, and the one I had ran. I think there's some gas issues there, and that'd probably be a better technical question, or for somebody that's super teched into it and dwell time and whatnot. I think I talked with Paul at BCM a little bit about it. I think I was looking for a 10.5 to kind of match up with some overall length stuff I was trying to accomplish, and he's 100% onto the 11.5 thing because of just what they've done testing wise for reliability and performance and whatnot. So I don't know, and there's not a ton of difference in there. The overall length wise, and according to the people that do that, 11.5 is kind of the way to go on that side of the house. And then, of course, with the Mark 18s, a good bit of time with that too. I'm pretty sure that's 11.5 as well.
Yeah, I seem to
Yeah.
recall. I think it was Pat Rogers, rest his soul. He did some studying with it, and he said that the difference, I guess, in velocity at some distance, like at 100 yards or whatever, was dramatic between the 10.5 and the 11.5.
Oh, really? Huh.
And he was a big proponent of the 11.5. I'm pretty sure, I
Hmm.
mean, we're going back now, what, like maybe like
Yeah.
12, 15 years, but I seem to recall that sticking in my head because I know when we came up with what we were looking at for rifles, we made sure that it was 11.5. I want to knock out some of these questions. I know you don't have
Yeah.
all night. Uh, my buddy Gio, he's excited about the homestead train. I guess he's signed up for your class coming down
Cool.
here, and he loves your Frank Proctor TV. So keep it up.
Thanks, man.
Um, what PCC do you shoot?
A PCC, MPX right now.
Nice,
Um,
very
I,
nice.
I did a couple blowback guns, and then I got into the SIG MPX and been modifying on that. I bought a SIG MPX PCC, and of course, like everything else, I've kind of tweaked that out to the way I like it, changed stock stuff, and a little bit of gas system and rail and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm digging that one.
And Hollow Point 45 wants to know: do you have any tips for cross-eye dominant shooters? I don't know if he's talking for pistol or rifle because
Yeah,
I know there's different situations for
yeah,
the rifle with the cross
yeah.
eye. But let's just start with the pistol. What do you? I mean, I
Um,
generally have them bring it to their other eye, but
yeah. Typically, whether it's cross dominant or whatnot, if folks can keep both eyes head pointed forward, both eyes open, and see one gun, one set of sights, and one target, do it. And that can be facilitated. As long as you don't have an astigmatism or something else, that can absolutely be facilitated by positioning a gun in front of your dominant eye. If folks are first, the downside to turning ahead to put the gun in front of your dominant eye is just losing the information. The folks that if they're cross dominant and having an astigmatism, they're most likely going to have to, close an eye or partially close an eye to be able to see one gun, one set of sights, and one targets. I would still encourage those folks, to keep their head forward so that they're getting as much peripheral vision as they can. Dots are a thing that kind of polled, like I don't have the issue, but I've polled it with a couple other folks that are telling me, hey, if I keep both eyes open, I see multiples. Like, well, here, try this. Let's go with a dot on it, and they're like, hey, I
Solves
can
a
keep both
problem.
eyes open and see one. So it's about information, whether if we hear a lot is from the combat shooter standpoint of needing situational awareness for sure, man. Now, if you're a competitive shooter, you can think of visually multiple target transition kind of stuff, or where well on the target transition stuff, you can think of it like chess. If you're looking at what you need to see to shoot, you focus through sights to a target that you're shooting. If both eyes are open, head forward, you can see almost 180 degrees worth of other information. So we're going to shoot that now, then that, then that. It's not you don't have to hunt around and find it. Your mind already knows where it's at. So that would be some information on thoughts on the cross dominant thing. Keep as much information as you can coming in, see, and making sure you're cleaning or seeing clean information out of the gun too.
K Hall wants to know if there's a compound exercise that you like to use to get the most out of your training.
Man, all of them, man, is that is somebody that's trained with me before. Dig on it, man. The amount of time you invest when you're out on the range, like how much stuff can you be getting out of it? How many skill sets can you be working at a time? Of some of the exercises that I do, I tell people a lot that focus monster thing, man, it brings a lot of stuff
The
in there.
focus monster, I remember that.
Yeah. It brings a lot of tools in. Doesn't so if I had like, and I've done this a little bit where I was like had a limited amount of time to train, like it was and ammo where I set that up, run that some reps, and I kind of would build off of it a little bit, But there's a lot of movement dynamics in there, a lot of gun handling stuff in there, hardcore visual stuff. You have to connect to the gun, So.
Just a couple more. This is from Bradley again. With carbine, with the optics, do you see a difference between using an LPVO, which I guess is a variable optic, versus a red dot?
Man, it's cool to what you're doing. I like the variables. If it's true one and then something else, whether it be 4, 6, or 8. If it's true one, man, they're generally pretty fast. Even without daytime visible illumination, like red dot kind of illumination. The black reticle, if it's adjusted right, will contrast pretty fast and can be really, really, really fast. If you're doing something that's going to require some shooting at distance, or maybe not even a lot of distance, 75 to 100 yards can absolutely be territory for a variable power optic if you're going to be shooting things that may be blending into their environment. It's something this size-ish, at 75 yards that is the same color as its environment. Magnification can help you find it so that you can see it and shoot it. Can you shoot something this size at 100 yards with a red dot only? Yeah, if you can see it. I mean, you can shoot, 12-inch size stuff at 300 really easy with a dot if you can see it. Kind of where I'm playing at it with the red dot thing is, a pretty strong, 50 yard and in optic. That's what I'm running on the PCC. I'm running a dot only on the it because I'm not going to be playing with them just because the trajectory on that thing, like really taking it past 50 becomes an exercise in ballistics. So the magnification is not doing anything there. I've got a 5.56 gun. I'll switch over and run a dot only on based on what we're doing. I shot a carbine match, Noveski series carbine match down here at the CMP in February, and it was all inside of pistol base. So the longest distance was 50 yards. Now they did have some smaller targets, but the targets were painted. Like steel target, like 6-inch kind of targets out there. I think probably a 4-inch target at about 50 was probably the hardest target we have. They were freshly painted, so they contrasted enough with their environment so that the dot really worked out well there. and it was just it was a little bit better advantage for just really hosing fast through the paper. But so kind of what you want to do with it, if you're going to do if some distance or needing to identify targets is a thing, the magnification definitely pay dividends there.
I remember you used to, I think it was one of your carbine videos that you did a while ago. You talked about shooting distance, but it seems you're doing more up close work these days. Do you ever get back to distance shooting?
Well, I kind of became like a little bit of a snob on carbine class stuff. Up until this year, I wasn't doing any carbine on the road because I built the range that I built here. Real heavy, like real rifle shooting stuff out to like 300, and then it ended up stretching that range out to 650. So like to really do rifle shooting stuff, it was hard to go somewhere to do like rifle distance stuff. Like, you got 50 yards. Well, you're not really doing rifle shooting stuff there. 100 yards, you're not really doing rifle shooting stuff there. But it was that Noveski match in February. It was like, you know what, dude, I forgot how much I like running carbines up close and fast. So I was like, maybe we'll do more of this. So I'm doing carbine classes coming up next year. They're kind of in that range, that 50 yards and in kind of thing. Actually, probably going to be more like 25 and in kind of thing. Just working on the movement dynamic stuff. We'll go over there. But yeah, I still dig the longer range rifle stuff. Training that is, man, it can become an equipment issue. That's and everybody in a class having equipment that speaks the same language can be a challenge. If I'm a big fan of mill-based reticles because you can just do so much more with them, and easier to translate that information and apply it to different stuff. BDC reticles, if you have folks with mill reticles, MOA reticles, BDC reticles, a duplex reticle, and trying to get everybody from 50 yards to 650 or whatever you got, that becomes a little bit complicated. And then if the equipment's not right, if the reticles don't track well, or the mounting is not right, or it breaks, or it's not mounted right, it becomes a tough thing on the equipment side of the house to kind of train through. But I dig it though, for sure.
Last question before we wrap up. It's a gear question. What compensator are you using on your 5.56 carbine?
It's mine. Actually, had to run them. What's that?
That's a good plug.
Yeah. I've got a new design that I've been working on. Like that one works really, really well. Kind of built it to, it does pretty good with flash. When I tested out, when green tip was kind of the thing there, compared to an A2, pretty much had the same signature as an A2 on flash with green tip. It is louder than an A2, but any comp that's actually working is louder. But it wasn't as loud as some of the other tactical brakes that are out there, and pretty effective. Not a full on like 3-gun type comp there, but kind of a mild on the overpressure, good on flash, and pretty good on, actually really good on performance. One of these days, I've got a new design kind of drawn out that might be a thing one of these days if we get around to that.
Well, people can find your gear that you sell, your sites, and all this other stuff on, is that Frank Proctor Performance?
Yep, frankproctorperformancegear.com. We got the full list of stuff over there right now. I'm going to be adding a few things back to my website, frankproctorshooting.com. Add a few things back there. Ben Sager Pro Shop's another place you may see my gear flying over there, and that's another place I buy a ton of my stuff from as well too, especially the CZ world. And competitive shooter kind of needs pretty good resource there as well.
And you keep putting up content on Frank Proctor TV?
Yeah. Yep. I've got a lot of stuff I want to do, just facilitating it and getting I'm catching up with my technology and my abilities with it. But Yeah, we put some stuff on the folks that are subscribed. There's put a video up not too long ago giving them some information for stuff like this. If they want to send some questions in for a particular video or something they want to see or a question, like throw it out there.
Awesome, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in
Yeah.
to this live session with Frank. And like
Hey.
he said, if you have questions, send them his way. Sign up for Frank Proctor TV, buy his gear, take a class. A bunch of the people already in the chat room are thanking you for the classes that they took with you.
Cool.
Um,
Appreciate them.
and guys, go shoot a match. Go shoot a match with Frank.
Yeah.
I think that would
Yeah.
be kind of a cool class.
Heck yeah.
So,
Good
anyways,
stuff, man.
Frank, have a happy and safe Thanksgiving, all you guys out there in Firearms Nation world. You also have, first of all, thank you for tuning in and thank you for the support. But have a great Thanksgiving. Be safe wherever you guys go, and stay the course, stay true, and we'll see you around. That's it.
Yeah. Thanks, fellas.